America spends $107 million to lay 1 kilometer of rail, and nobody is officially responsible for that number. The NYU Marron Transit Costs Project compiled rail construction data across dozens of countries. The United States isn't merely expensive, it's an outlier so far off the curve, it required its own axis. A quick definition: rail built at grade sits on the surface. Tunneled track runs underground. Tunneling costs more, far more. American cities do tunnel, but tunneling alone doesn't explain the gap. The most common explanation is raw materials. Steel is expensive in America, so rail is expensive. Reasonable? Also wrong. The price of structural steel varies significantly by region, with U.S. prices around $1,109 per ton as of June 2026. But specific data for Paris is not available. Materials aren't the culprit. So if materials cost the same everywhere, something else is driving the price. The NYU Marron researchers pointed at structure, specifically the fragmented way American transit projects are organized from the first contract. A transit agency hires a prime contractor. That contractor hires subcontractors. Those subcontractors hire consultants. Those consultants hire subconsultants. Each layer adds overhead, margin, and a diffusion of accountability. Here's the structural problem. When cost overruns hit, each layer points to the layer above or below. No single entity owns the total cost. The form is complete, the process was followed, the budget is gone. Technically, everyone did their job. Each consultant layer charges for its services, legitimately, contractually, on paper. By the time a shovel enters the ground, a substantial fraction of the budget has already been spent on the process of deciding how to spend the budget. And that process takes time. American transit projects routinely spend years, sometimes a decade, in environmental review, procurement cycles, and design revision before construction begins. Time in infrastructure is money with compound interest. American civil engineers, according to the Marron research, gravitate toward highway projects. Highway funding in the United States is consistent and predictable. Transit funding isn't. The incentive is clear. Go where the stable money is. That talent migration matters. When the best civil engineers spend their careers on highways, transit agencies hire consultants to fill the expertise gap. More consultants, more layers, more cost. Spain built 2,000 miles of high-speed rail for significantly less than the projected cost of the Amtrak proposal for the Northeast Corridor alone. 2,000 miles versus 1 corridor. That's the scale of the discrepancy. Spain didn't accomplish this through cheaper raw materials. Spanish steel isn't magic. Spain accomplished it through centralized project ownership, streamlined procurement, and institutional continuity, each of which is, in principle, replicable. Here's a counterintuitive data point. The United States is the most expensive country in the world for subway construction. That sounds alarming until you check New York City's numbers, which run more than triple New Zealand's cost per kilometer. New York City is the sharpest case study. Phase 2 of the 2nd Avenue subway, 2.4 kilometers of new tunneled track, carries a projected price tag of $7.7 billion. That works out to roughly $3.2 billion per kilometer. The global average for tunneled urban rail sits well below that figure. The 2nd Avenue subway Phase 2 doesn't represent a worst-case scenario. For New York, it's approximately normal. That's the part worth pausing on. On a project like 2nd Avenue Phase 2, the work is divided among dozens of separate contracts. Each contract has its own scope boundary. Where scopes meet, gaps appear. Gaps require change orders. Change orders cost money. The system is self-expanding. A change order isn't inherently a scandal. It's a contract amendment when reality diverges from the plan. The problem is a system that generates them structurally, because the plan was fragmented before the first bolt was tightened. Follow the incentive. The prime contractor is paid on contract value, not final efficiency. The consultant bills by the hour. The transit agency is judged on whether it followed procurement rules, not whether the project was cheap. Nobody's bonus depends on the total. Procurement rules exist for good reasons: transparency, anti-corruption, equal competition. But when compliance with the process becomes the goal rather than the outcome, the process metastasizes. The binder gets thicker, the project gets slower, the cost climbs. Remember the steel price myth? It persists because it's a comfortable explanation. If materials are the problem, nothing structural needs to change. The system stays intact. The invoices keep arriving. Everyone keeps following the process. The NYU Marron Transit Cost Project didn't simply identify the price gap. It mapped the structural causes across dozens of projects globally and found that the most expensive systems share one trait: no single entity owns the total cost outcome. Eric Goldwyn at NYU put it plainly: what expensive transit systems lack is a government champion, a single accountable actor empowered to drive efficiency across the entire project, not just their contractual slice of it. In countries where rail costs stay low, that champion exists. A ministry, a state enterprise, or a single agency holds the budget, owns the outcome, and carries the institutional memory to prevent the same expensive mistakes on the next project. Institutional memory is underrated. When a transit agency outsources planning to consultants who leave after the project ends, the agency learns nothing. The next project starts from zero. The same mistakes are billable all over again. The implication scales up fast. When every kilometer of rail costs 5 times the global average, the political math of transit investment turns brutal. Fewer lines get built. Fewer cities get connected. The cost structure shapes the infrastructure map. And the cost structure feeds its own skepticism. Projects overrun. Headlines appear. Public confidence drops. The next transit proposal faces higher political resistance. Funding becomes less stable. Civil engineers move toward highways. The cycle is self-reinforcing. The Marron research doesn't leave the diagnosis without levers. Streamlined procurement, in-house engineering capacity, single-owner accountability, and continuity of institutional knowledge all appear in the low-cost country profiles. None of these require exotic technology. The gap between knowing the fix and implementing it isn't technical, it's structural. Every layer of the current system holds a contract, a revenue stream, and a legal standing. Reforming the system means reforming the incentives of people currently being paid by it. Which brings us back to that $107 million per kilometer. It's not a law of physics. It's not the price of steel. It's the price of a system designed, through procurement rules, contracting norms, and funding instability, to produce exactly that number. There's a domestic crack in the pattern worth noting. Los Angeles Metro shifted from design-build to construction manager at risk, CMAR, for better cost control. Early results showed measurable cost reductions against the traditional fragmented model. It didn't solve everything, but it proved that the American cost floor isn't fixed. Here's what you can do with this. The next time a transit project is announced in your city, look past the headline cost figure and ask one question: who is the single accountable owner of the total budget? If the answer is a committee, a consortium, or nobody in particular, you already know something about where that money is going. Voters and advocates who ask that question out loud are applying exactly the pressure that separates a Spain from a Second Avenue. This audit is complete. The findings, as always, may be ignored.